Hello and welcome back to the Inspired Podcast, a podcast made to have conversations centered around being designed by God to discover and dwell. Whatever season in life you're in, you will pick up helpful insight, thoughts to think throughout the week, and leave this episode feeling inspired to know God in deeper ways. I'm Jessica, and I'm on the Inspired team here at X Church, and I'm joined by my friends Janice and Megan. In the spirit of spring on the way, we thought it might be a good idea to go ahead and clean out those toxic friendships. Too blunt? The truth is, we can all be some level of toxic. In this episode, we talk about what it looks like to have toxic friendships. We identify what those relationships look like and have a conversation around what to do about them. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
We are back again.
Here we are. Episode, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
One of them. We're happy you're here, wherever you're tuning in from. And today, although we might be in the middle of an ice storm or some freezing rain or maybe sub-zero temperatures. Whoever knows in Ohio.
Yeah, it could all happen in one day.
Spring is right around the corner. I know.
Daylight savings time is going to be starting
I
soon.
did see that on the calendar coming up, and I was so happy.
Me too.
I just love it when it's light outside for a long, long time. Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. My bedtime gets later, but it's okay. I have more joy. My birthday is on the first day of spring, March 20th.
Oh.
So it's just always had a safe space in my heart. How old are you going to be? 24.
24. Oh my gosh.
I'm over a decade older than you.
I'm not even going to talk about how many decades.
You guys are just wise. I learn from you every day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this is all right.
Although my allergies may be taking a toll this spring. I don't know who's with me, but they're already setting in. I'm not going to say that because then I'm going to suddenly appear with allergies this spring, but I really have never had bad seasonal allergies. I just learned that antihistamines cause dryness. Like Weren't you a nurse? I was an ER tech. No one came to me with their Claritin. It was more like trauma. Can you sew my arm back on? Yeah, and like tragic injuries. But I guess when you think about it, that's why my eyes are dry. But along with allergies, a sprinkle of ice here and there, my birthday, there's maybe some spring cleaning, in our future. Oh, yeah. Okay, wait. I have a question because I feel like since I've moved to Ohio, this is something that I've learned that several people do here, like for my friends, and I've never heard it before, but do you clean your walls? Oh, yeah. What is that? I have never heard.
Well, okay. I think it goes way, 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 way back because I remember my mom doing this and my mom talking about when she and my dad were first married, the house that they were in, the furnace was coal. Burn coal, and that creates all kinds of like dirt and soot on the walls. And so in the spring, when you didn't need the furnace anymore, you cleaned it off. Yeah. And we had wallpaper because it was the real wallpaper stuff.
Yeah, like not sticky.
Yeah, and so she had wallpaper cleaner. It was actually the forerunner of Play-Doh.
What?
Yeah, look it up.
Like my kids play with something that used to clean.
Yeah, the original Play-Doh, the company that made that. Before that, they made wallpaper cleaner, and it was like that. It was I used to play with that stuff. My mom used to give it to me because it was, fun. It was blue or green, and you could do all that.
Dual purpose.
Yeah, right. But you would use it and rub it on the wallpaper, and it would pick up all the dust and dirt.
Oh, that is genius.
Yeah, and then eventually that company, which I think is in Ohio somewhere, then developed Play-Doh.
Wow. Well, can I ask you something else while we're learning about all these things? These ingenious things.
I bring these.
Okay,
things
but
here.
I really also want to know, in Ohio, this doesn't happen in Texas, but in Ohio, why do people in the winter raise their porch swings up really high?
Because you're not going to use them.
But why in the world would you raise your porch swing up high? Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, I don't have a porch swing. I'm not asking if you had a porch
noticed.
swing. I'm asking why
Because
people
we
do
know,
this.
We know that
Never
our kids
noticed
are going to
that.
get on that in the middle of the winter, and then or somebody might sit
No,
on
that
it
doesn't
and
make
slip and
sense.
fall.
No.
Yes, it's putting things away for the winter.
Well, the only reason I can think of is if you, especially if you're, because I see like older houses that have like, front porches that hoist their porch swing up all the way. And only one time, I've seen people stack wood under it. So I'm like, maybe it clears space on the porch to stack wood because you have a wood burning stove or something, and that's the way you heat your house. But if you know the answer to this, please email.
I don't know.
Please email.
Maybe so it's like not swinging around as much.
Yeah,
I don't know.
right,
Is it
so it
more
wouldn't be
windy
caught
in the
wind.
winter? I don't know.
It's just part of putting things
Because
up.
we got a porch swing for Christmas, and we put it up. And this I was thinking about it. I'm like, am I supposed to put it up all the way to the roof, or because every once in a while we'll go out and sit on it in the freezing cold. But
You got to jump up there?
no, it's not that high.
Climb
It's
a ladder
low.
to get to your porch
Okay,
swing?
I have gone way off the beaten path. Spring cleaning.
Oh, man.
Okay, I will be wiping my walls because I have little kids at home, so my walls constantly have grime on them.
Yes.
From
I will
little
say-
hands.
I only wipe them down when I can, like,
See.
see. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm 5'2", and so when I wipe them down, I only get, like, half the wall.
3/4 of the
Yeah,
wall.
if that. So,
Yeah, and you have to start from the top and
Yeah.
work your way down.
Yeah.
So that means you have to get up on a ladder. Yeah.
but, I mean, in the spirit of spring cleaning and tidying things up, maybe getting rid of some dust laying around, I think we should talk about cleaning up our lives a little bit. Maybe dig into toxicity and handling toxic relationships.
Dun, dun, dun.
Is there a cleaner for that?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not
Does
Play-Doh.
Play-Doh make a putty for that one?
Nope.
I think that's good. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Toxic friendships. Spring cleaning in toxic friendships.
And everybody just thought of somebody. So
Oh,
this is for you. This is for you. Not to be sent passive aggressively
No.
to that person, but tune in. I'm sure that you'll hopefully be able to relate
Yeah.
and get some like practical.
Yeah. There's going to be some super practical takeaways.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. Let's dive into what is a toxic relationship. How do we identify that? What does that look like?
First of all, have you ever been in a toxic relationship
I've been
or
in
friendship?
toxic friendships. Yes. And I feel like for me, naturally, one thing that I notice from toxic friendships is I love to do things for people because I think that's just like my natural, I don't know, tendencies. And so when I find myself in a toxic friendship, I often like walk away from interactions feeling really exhausted and like depleted and just kind of like I am pouring like all of my energy into this and not really
Getting anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
You give more than you take.
Yes, which I'm okay with. However, when I do need help from that friend or I need something from that friend, more often than not, I found that that is unavailable to me.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest struggle for me is just putting so much into people and not feeling like I have someone to count on.
So basically, it's like you don't. It's not. There's no. What's the word? Reciprocity. In other words, you're not getting anything
Yes.
back.
Yes.
You know, that's true. If you have a friend that basically is kind of like a black hole of need,
yes.
Woo!
Yes.
and they just kind of
Nail on the head.
Yep.
suck it all out of you, you know,
Yeah.
your expectation has to be with that friend is that's the kind of interactions we're going to have.
Yeah.
And that may not change. And so this is not going to be a friendship where there's going to be a
Right.
two-way street where I will be able to go to this person and say, I'm having a bad day, you know, and talk
Right.
about it and have
Yeah.
have them not turn it totally around and make it about them.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I feel like in friendships that I've been involved in that have been toxic, I walk away from the friendship and feel like I'm not enough. And I think that just as a person in my personality, I think that's probably one of my biggest fears is that I did something wrong or that who I am is not enough. And so when I've noticed that I've been in friendships, or actually, let's say this way, I noticed that that's my kind of indicator, my red flag and my red light is like when I do walk away from a person or an interaction or a conversation and feel like I just am not enough for them, or like whatever I do, whatever I say is just not enough for them. Then that for me, that's like it's a red flag.
I think another one too is if you, after an interaction with someone that you find yourself questioning like who you are and questioning how you do things. I think of this especially. I remember a friend that I had when my oldest son was just a couple years old. And she had children similar age, and we would spend time together because that seemed like the natural thing because we were both young moms, and then we have kids and all this kind of thing. And she would leave, and I would just be sitting there feeling like and questioning everything about how I was mothering and everything about that because everything was just wonderful. Her child was perfect, and everything was great. And then I don't know what it was. My complacent son would suddenly be the child who was throwing Legos, and stuff like that. It was like, it was bad. But I was like, I can't sustain this because I just ended up questioning everything. There's, the term that people use of gaslighting, where someone makes you question your reality and question everything that you thought was right or that, what really is the truth in a relationship. That's a really big red flag.
Oh, it's so real too. Yeah. And people, a lot of times, this toxicity is like it's a disease of the heart. And so it's coming from a place of hurt from that person. But I think what is even more like hurtful is that a lot of times in those toxic relationships, we might even feel guilty for identifying that in someone because of what we know about like what they're going through. And so there's guilt around like saying no to someone because, well, they're going through a really rough patch and I don't want to say no. And I feel
or
like
you don't want to be the straw that broke the camel's back and like send them into some sort of rage or depression or like, which is not healthy because that means you're walking on eggshells around them.
Yeah.
And they haven't created the space or the freedom in the friendship for you to be able to, I mean, it takes time, but that means that they haven't created the space or the part of the friendship that allows you to like speak into them because it's,
because really, or you have the person that you feel that you have to walk around on eggshells, kind of what you were saying. It's like, am I going to say something or do something that's going to set them off, whether it be in anger or just, say they're struggling with depression or whatever. But sometimes keeping the peace at any cost just ends up costing you a lot. And so maybe that's some of what you have to look at is saying, is this friendship, this, really costing me a lot? Is it costing me my peace? Is it costing me my self-esteem? Is it costing me, just my time? All of those things. Those are all things to look at too. And again, I think it's like, what are your expectations? Is this going to be a relationship or a friendship that I'm basically going to be like a support person? And that's okay because sometimes we do have those people. But
I think you're right with the expectation. It's not like you can't go into a relationship or a friendship of someone that has a track record of being an emotional black hole and think that I will be like this is going to be different and I like they're going to be able to meet my needs because that a lot of times that doesn't happen.
Or I'm going to be able to fix them.
Oop. Yeah, you cannot change someone's heart.
I had a really wise person tell me that like what she saw, like this, we talk about this all the time. We talk about surrounding yourself with wisdom and surrounding yourself with healthy friendships and surrounding yourself with people who are older, wiser, more experienced in certain areas of their life. And this person once told me like in a friendship that I was trying to make work because I felt like I just felt like I need to take care of them because if I don't take care of them, nobody else will. And she told me, you're not her mother and you're not her sister. Like, meaning not like her physical mother or physical sister, but like, I think that when I look back in my past, like, I was a fixer, and like, I had younger brothers, and so I mothered them and I babied them, and I was their sister. And like, even now, like, Trey has told me before, like, has heard me interact with my brothers, like, Jess, they're adults now. I'm like, I just can't help it. Like, you know, sometimes when they say things, I'm like, why are you thinking like that? Or like, that's dumb or whatever. And what I've had to learn is like, I don't play that place in people's lives anymore. You know, I mean, I'm always going to be a big sister, and I'm a mother myself, but to other people, I'm not like, I don't need to have it my mission that I can fix them.
Yeah.
Or I can make something in their life better, because really what that does is diminish God's ability. And me saying, if I think I can step into friendship, right, and if I think I can fix them, that diminishes God's ability to be able to step in their life, and like, that I lack control in God being able to be that for them instead of me.
That's good. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I actually, I firmly believe that toxicity is a disease of the heart. And I think one of the big misconceptions that we've touched on is like, if only I could be the one exception that changes their heart. Like, imagine how great that could be. And when we do
it's
that,
wanting to be the hero.
Right. And are we doing that for our favor, for their favor? And I think we really do take the power away and the faith away from God, because he is the only one who can change hearts. Like, he tells us he will take away a heart of stone and restore in a heart of flesh. Not, I will give you the means to do this. It's, I will do this alone, and then I will replace it.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a big realization for me, because I am like, I have that people fixer side of me, and I want to be that for people. And one thing that I had to realize was that the best that I can do is just be a light that will hopefully make someone say, oh my gosh, like, what is that? And then slowly allow those doors to open that would allow for a heart change in them.
Yeah. Well, and also what that means is, you know, a person can be toxic, but we can still be rooting for them. And I think that's our job as Christ followers and sisters and brothers in the faith, is that we are rooting for our sisters and brothers in the faith. Like, they might have, like, you know, like, toxicity is a disease of the heart, and they might be dealing with that, but we need to be the ones. Maybe it's not like, maybe we've set up boundaries to where we're not like the ones speaking into their life or whatever, but we still need to be in their corner saying, like, God is for you, and he can do this in you. And, you know, like, I believe that, and I'm here for you, and, you know, go you. I mean, I think it's important that we, as much as we can, I think it's easy that we can see indicators of toxicity, and know, I think a big part of it is discernment too. Knowing when to step in and when to put up boundaries. And I think that it can almost be like almost a situation by situation, because I think that there's sometimes where we have people in our lives, and sometimes the door is open to have a relationship with it, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes we have to realize that someone else's, you know, that's someone else's place to speak into them or whatever. And so I think it's a lot of discernment, like praying through, like, is it me that steps in? Is it me? You know?
Yeah. I also think it's important to consider that toxicity can be seasonal and it can be environmental as well. And so maybe it's just a season of their life where this, like, disease is being projected onto you, and being taken out of that environment. Like, just because one of your friends you have established is toxic towards you does not mean that you can never be friends with them again.
Right.
Like, for them, it might be a change in season or a change in environment.
Well, that kind of goes along with the cancel culture that we were talking about. Is like, if you just cut people out, then you're, I mean, you're severing ties, burning bridges.
And that's a sign of toxicity.
It is.
It is. Well, yeah, it is. You know, I was just sitting here listening to you and thinking about the actual word toxic, which is that it's poisonous. It is detrimental to life if something is toxic. And I think that's one of the ways to help define and to pinpoint what's going on in a friendship. It's like if this is draining life out of me, or it's damaging life in me, then that's something I need to look at. And really, just like you were saying, in those kinds of situations, our job is to point that person to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I know I've been in situations where for example, you realize that maybe a friend has become really, really dependent on you.
Dependence is huge.
That's hard.
Dependence is huge. And then if you are a person that is, but I want to fix people, or I want to help and all that, it's really easy to get enmeshed that way, and it can get really unhealthy quickly.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, your family is looking at you. What do you mean you're running off to go help this person to do whatever? What about us?
Yeah. Ugh.
And that's not good either. That's a great indicator that I need to be looking at this friendship. And sometimes in order to recognize it, it takes somebody on the outside
Yeah, I was going to say that.
to look at, to say, do you see what's going on? Because I know for myself in this one particular situation, it was like it took someone else to say something to me, because I thought I was doing the Christian thing.
And you were being God's helper.
Yeah. I was, I was loving this person, and I was helping them and doing all those great, good things that I was supposed to be doing. And it wasn't healthy at all.
Yeah, I was going to say about the other people pointing it out to you. I think that when we identify toxicity around us, and, okay, so sometimes we find ourselves in toxic relationships and we need to know what to do. Okay, I talked to someone today that said that they didn't even know they were in a toxic relationship until they got out. So I know that happens. Yeah. And it's almost like you need to be on the outside looking in to see like what was really playing along. I think there's also the category of we know we're in a toxic relationship and we need to get out, but we don't know how. Yeah. And then I think that there's times and spaces in lives where we've maybe, have the wisdom under our belt to know and to be able to see the red flags of a toxic person walking right up to you. Yeah. And so whether you fall in the first, second, or third category, I think that like we're going to walk through like identifying it and then what to do, leading out of it. But I do think that like if you're in a place in life where maybe you're recovering from a toxic friendship, or maybe you're finally out of one and you feel free and you feel kind of, away from like the chains of that friendship. What do you like? Some of the things that come to mind in order not to step right back into a toxic relationship or a friendship would be to be able to, well, first of all, you can ask God for discernment and for wisdom. He gives it for free. I mean, it says that in James, it says that in Proverbs. So we can ask God for wisdom and he gives it freely. But also, notice, take a look, and don't rush into it, but take a look at their friends. And, do they have concentric circles of friends? Because I really do feel like healthy people have concentric circles of friends. They have a really small inner circle, like 2 or 3. Yeah, and then they have another ring outside of that where they have people that they do life with maybe. And then outside of that, they have acquaintances. And even outside of that, they have reputation of a good character. Yeah. And so look at those things from the inside to outside and see, because I've seen a toxic person from a distance, and if you watch them long enough, or if you take notice of their habits and their character, you notice that they don't have a whole lot of people around them. And I'm not saying that because I think a lot of us are introverts and we probably have a very small circle. But outside of that, what is the reputation of the character? Yeah. And their interactions with people. That will tell you a lot.
That's good. I think too, when it comes to those concentric circles, when you get to that smaller one of 2 or 3 people, I think one thing that is really important, especially if maybe you're listening to this and you have that mindset of like, I'm in a perfect relationship and there's nothing that could possibly be wrong here, or maybe you've been one of those people that didn't realize you were in a toxic relationship until you were out of it. I think that's when the importance of that small circle comes in. Yeah. Because I think when you have 2 or 3 people max that you allow to speak into your relationships, I think that is where the wisdom comes in, and you can really filter. That is much easier to filter truth from than if you had 15 acquaintances speaking in. Yeah. And so I think that accountability that comes from those 2 people who have proven to you that they have your best interests at heart and that you have learned like from their wisdom, I think that accountability is crucial to someone being able to be like, hey, Megan, I think that, this might not be what you think it is. Mm-hmm. And you can also, I receive that information much easier from an inner circle person than I would from an outside acquaintance. Yeah.
Well, of course, because that's the person that you have had some vulnerability with, and you have some intimacy in that, they have let their walls down, you've let your walls down, and so
reciprocity, like you were talking about earlier.
I mean, so that's
good.
Those are the people that can speak into your life. You don't let absolutely everybody, and I think that's one of the things when you have a toxic friendship is that what that person is speaking to you is attacking you personally and tearing you down, then and you've let your walls down so that you're doing that. That is can be very, very damaging. And that's where those other folks can say, you spend time with this person, and then I talk to you, and you are just like, you're going to go change your hair. You're going to do, you're going to start doing this differently. You're going to start doing that differently because this person over here is telling you that's what you should do. Yeah. Or that's the better thing to do. Yeah. So, and I think that's true. I think God provides us with counsel. Yeah. Through healthy relationships. Yeah. So that we know where to put our walls, where to put, I guess, more boundaries rather than walls, but where to put our boundaries. Yeah.
Megan, we were kind of discussing the idea of this whole theme, and you brought up a few different kinds of toxicity, and one of them blew you away. Can you tell us about that?
So whenever I hear toxicity, I always think of like the friend that constantly talks about other people and like brings down your mood and just drains you of all energy. And I stumbled across an article that was about positive toxicity. And I've heard of it before, but I've never been like, I just picture that as like, have a great day, I love you all, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually like very damaging. Like,
I love you, have a great day.
Right. Like, don't be sad. Where's your smile today? Like, and that is just surface level of like a huge issue. And I think especially when it comes to the Christian faith, it is that can cause a huge divide between Christians and non-believers because, and I'm guilty of it time and time again. This article just completely blew my mind. And it was written by a Christian, and he was begging other Christians to take note of this. And it's this toxic positivity that comes in the form of a blanket statement of faith in order to solve someone's hurt. And so what that would look like is if a friend came to me and they just had the most tragic day of their life, like their friend got in a car accident and is on a ventilator, and I said, God will bring healing. Let me pray with you. Okay? I've done that before. Not that specific scenario, but I've put my Christian cap on and said, what Bible verse can I apply to this? And I think that in those times, that is not what that person is looking for.
No.
I think unless they specifically ask, hey, do you have any biblical sources that you think would help me in that situation? If that is not their specific request, I think that what that interaction tells them is that A, you are not listening to the hurt and the anguish that they were trying to express to you. And B, you're providing them with this very shallow replacement for faith in the hope that Jesus can bring. Because saying God will provide healing, that without
Well,
any
it's true.
follow-up. It
But-
is true. You are
Yeah.
speaking
Right.
truth.
Well, it's almost like you're dismissing their pain in order to like give them a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And like you can sit with them in pain and still trust that same statement that you wanted to say.
Yes.
And that statement probably would mean more if you sat in their pain with them
yes.
and showed through your action and your time and your love that God can bring healing.
yeah.
I think what happens too is it's, you both touched on this, is that it's uncomfortable being with someone in their pain. It's
It
it
is.
is. It's natural for us to say, I really want to avoid pain. And emotional pain especially can be very disconcerting and very upsetting when you are with someone because you want to some
You
way
want to fix it.
you know make them feel better and alleviate that. So in other words, your motivation is really good. But the problem is that the way you try to solve it is you want to try to fix it. And when we were talking about this and kind of, saying where we were going, a scripture came to me, and this is one, and it's only because I have been the recipient of more than my share of toxic positivity. And in Jeremiah 8:11, it says, "They offer superficial treatment for my people's mortal wound. They give assurance of peace when there is no peace." And one of the translations I read said it was like putting a Band-Aid on things. When you have someone whose arm has just been ripped off, you put a Band-Aid on, it's not really going to do anything. It might make you feel better, like you've said something, you've done something
Yeah.
that's made.
Or let me even say this, like the Christian you say, I've planted a seed.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I mean, and it's like going up to someone who is just gone through found a really hard diagnosis. They're facing all kinds of uncertainty. They don't know what's the future's going to hold. Am I going to be able to afford to pay for this? This is a lifelong disease, whatever. And then saying to them, well, God won't give you any more than you can handle. That is one of my, don't get me started on that one. Because I truly believe, there's a kernel of truth in that.
Yeah.
Right.
But you better follow
Yeah.
that up with the reason why. It's because he's the one who makes you able to handle it. In
Yeah.
a way, he does give you something that you can't handle, because
Yeah.
otherwise, what would you need him for?
Yeah.
If, otherwise, instead, it's like this is going to drive you to him. But sometimes you just have to sit with people.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that Job's friends got
I was
right.
about to
For
say
the first
Job.
7 days that
Yep.
they came to him, all they did was they sat in silence with him in his grief
Yep.
and his pain and his questioning. Then they got off the track and started telling him it was all his fault. But,
Right.
but for 7 days, they did get it right. And sometimes that's what we want. And it's like, just be quiet.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
zip it,
Yeah. I think one of the errors that we make when it comes to this toxic positivity, and I really liked this not really analogy, but this point that I read, is that we use hope and positivity interchangeably. And there's a very distinct difference between
That's
them.
good.
Yes. In that positivity is trying to make the problem go away, or at least trying to get the person to stop talking about it, because we are uncomfortable. So let me throw a verse out there, or an 8-word message of positivity and hope that shuts down the conversation, right? And then hope is when you acknowledge the struggle and the pain while you also point them to the promises that Jesus has given. So I think hope puts the soil and the nutrients and the water under the seed that you're planting. And I think that the positivity aspect may be the seed, and that's great. But without those other elements, it's not going to go
Cultivate that
anywhere.
seed.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I know. After my husband passed away, I was a recipient of a large quantity of toxic positivity, and it was like it got to the point where I finally just, rather than let it get me down or make me feel bad or whatever, it was just like, it's okay. They mean well.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just don't understand, and that's I give them grace in that. Things like everything from, well, he's with Jesus.
You're like, I know that, dum-dum.
And I'm like, and part of you inside is like, yeah, he's with Jesus, but he's not here with me.
I know, yeah.
Like,
it doesn't take away the gap that you feel.
Yeah.
Like you're excited that he's
or the one of well, God just needed him there.
Because you're thinking, I need him
I
here.
need him here.
Like, even just hearing this is making me uncomfortable, and I wasn't even there.
or
and I know I've said something like that.
I know.
It's so much better for him because he doesn't have he's not sick anymore and stuff like that. And it's in my mind. You're thinking, I know all that stuff, but I'm over here bleeding profusely, and you're just telling me I should just be happy. Yeah. And then part of me is like, yes, I am happy that he's with Jesus. I am happy that he doesn't have to deal with with
and
his
you also
issues.
In the process of grieving, he is with Jesus and he is happy. It's a part of grieving, but it comes later.
Yeah,
it comes in, like a lot later in grieving. So I'm glad you're saying this. I think we should just talk about what not to say when someone's grieving, because you are lying if you're listening and saying that like you've never had that like walking up and having to speak to a relative at a funeral and not knowing what to say.
Please don't say God just got heaven just got another angel,
gained another angel,
because number one, angels are created beings and there aren't going to be any more. They're not. They don't turn into angels. Okay, please don't say that. But
I feel like I'm gonna go home and write apology letters.
Listen, there is. Well, okay. I want to point out that in your wisdom and in your big compassionate heart, that you. Okay, so we're talking about toxic positivity, and you have said like you knew that they were coming from a genuine good place.
Yeah.
And so I think that takeaway from positive toxicity or toxic, which one are we calling it?
Toxic positivity.
Yes.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
That you can keep in the back of your mind that, you might be a recipient of that, but also it's that they mean well and they come from a good place. I think that the problem is when you're surrounded by a chorus of toxic positivity and you no longer know like what's negative and what's positive because all these people are just shouting positive things at me and I'm supposed to believe this, and you really put yourself in a place where you kind of beat yourself up because you're like, well, if I was just as positive as them, then I guess I would be better or all right, but why do I feel this way? Like being in a place of lots of positivity can almost be like, well, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too the other thing is that things that do help and things that to say is just to say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just say that you're sorry.
Yeah.
That that I know this has to be. I know I can tell this is really hard. You're going through a really hard time. Those are things that help because then you're acknowledging that person's pain. You're acknowledging that and not trying to gloss over it to make yourself more comfortable, because that's kind of what happens is it's like we're uncomfortable with somebody else's pain. One that I hear is like people say, "Oh, you're going to be fine. You're really strong."
Oi.
Yikes.
And it's like,
you're like, yeah, I'm strong enough to punch you in the face.
I'm like, no, I don't think that.
That would be so mean. Just mean.
But it's like, but I'm not. I'm feeling like a puddle of mush on the floor right now. I do not feel strong. And instead, it's to come alongside and say, I'm here.
Yeah.
Do you need a hug?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things,
And I think whatever your pain is, whether it's the loss of someone near to you or you struggle with anxiety or depression, I've talked to several friends in the past week leading up to this episode, and I just asked, like, what type of interaction would you classify as healthy and doesn't leave you with, like, a feeling of toxicity? And the overwhelming majority have said, I want someone to communicate with me and just ask what I need. Like, to look at me and say, do you want advice? Do you want me to listen? Do you want me to help you try and solve this problem? Because I think that naturally we all want to jump in, provide advice, solve the issue, and
move on.
Right.
There it is.
Yes. And a lot of times, and Janice, you could even speak into this if you've felt this too, but if we just accept being okay with not truly understanding what they're going through and just saying, I will be here to listen and I will be here for what you need when you need it. Mm-hmm. Even though that doesn't give the satisfaction of an answer or solving the problem or breaking your anxiety or bringing you out of that depression, I think that from what I've heard and even what I've experienced, sometimes I just want people to listen and to acknowledge that they don't understand. And that's okay.
Yeah. To say, it's one thing to say, I just can't imagine what you're going through. It's almost like you can say, I can't imagine what you're going through, but I'm here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you need a hug, I'll give you a hug. Or even just to say, can I just pray with you? And and pray in a way that doesn't get positively toxic.
Don't like start your prayer and being like, God, you are just so good.
Please just remind your child of
your
who
child
they are,
of your goodness,
because there's a clear gap in knowledge here, and you just need to restore their faith.
Oh, there is nothing worse than being the recipient of a prayer like that, because you're because you want to grit your teeth and say, Lord, could we get this prayer over really quick?
Picturing like hands on a head in a circle. And the center of that circle wanting any way out.
Oh yeah, there is no way out.
Yeah, but no, I think that's a really good thing, Megan. Just say I can't imagine what you're going, because if you haven't, and even when I talked many times, the Lord has put me in the place of talking to women who've lost their spouses. You know, and I can say to them, I'm on this same journey. But I can't say to them, I know exactly what you're feeling. Yeah, because I don't. Because everybody's situation is different, whether it be grief, loss of a job, you know, betrayal in a marriage or whatever. Even if you've gone through those things, you have an understanding, and you maybe have more of an inside track than someone who hasn't.
Yeah.
But
that's
you
good.
don't know exactly, but you can say, you know, and the hardest thing is not turning it onto yourself and say, oh, I know exactly. Yeah. Because when I went through this, it was, you know.
Well, then that makes it all about you again.
Yeah. And that's toxic.
Yeah. And I think that goes to show that this negative toxicity and positive toxicity, it's like a swinging hammer. Like you can flip from positive toxicity and then find yourself in a situation of negative toxicity. Like if you are receiving advice from a friend, and you might be that friend that is like, I need you to move in with me and be my therapist and be there whenever I need anything and also make all my decisions for me. And then you have become a source of negative toxicity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's when it comes to boundaries. I know we've talked about that a lot, but I'm wondering if, like, practically, I think that we can have boundaries in the way we talk, the way we think, and even in like we've already talked about, who we trust. And I think there's a lot to be said about healthy boundaries.
Yeah. Okay, so this is what I feel like as we've been discussing, because I feel like when we started the episode, it was like, Megan, you even said it, oh, you just thought of someone who's toxic. But I feel like, and I mean, even you said it yourself, oh my gosh, I've said that before.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking in the context of toxicity. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, so we started and like, cool, we can point the finger at like this person's toxic, whatever. But as I'm sitting here now, I'm like, dang, do I give off toxic vibes?
Oh,
and I think that it's important to ask ourselves that, because I think that to some degree, like we're all on a journey of emotional health, mental health, spiritual health. We're all on that journey and that continuum. I think that there's always parts of friendship that I learn about the way that I am a friend to people, and also the way that people are friends to me. And so maybe you're thinking like, maybe I've said those things before, or maybe I do that, and that's not oh, like they're telling me I'm toxic. Like, hold on, don't,
Yep.
run away or think that we're calling you toxic. I think that really the question to be asked here is, in my friendship, is there authenticity? Because I think that whether it's positive, negative toxicity or whatever, is there authenticity? And am I being just truthful? Like you said, like sometimes, or like you said, Megan, that sometimes what you found with asking these people is just, I just really want people to say like, I don't know, or I don't know how to help you, or I don't know how you're feeling, or, just to be honest, just say like, you're not trying to fix them. You're not trying to make everything in their life better, but you're coming as a stance of like, I don't know what to do.
I'm
just sorry, and I'm available for you.
Yeah.
I think that the authenticity can do so much in our friendships moving forward, with just being authentic. So let's get back on the track to, if you do find yourself in a toxic friendship, what do you do? And like, so we've thrown out the word boundaries, we've thrown out the word counsel. And so I think that the first step that we talked about, that we really nailed down, is identify like what is toxicity and how do we identify it? And, we could be in it, we can be outside of it, or we can be in it and know that we need to get out. And then, but I think that when we talked about counsel, I think along with the counsel piece is the confrontation piece. Yeah. And confrontation is a hard word, but it's, I'm going to say biblical, because I can think that Paul and Barnabas had confrontation and they split ways. And that's in Acts, and they didn't see eye to eye on something, and they split ways, and God used them here and God used them there. So it's not good. Like God severed their friendship and he didn't use either one of them. Yeah. He broke apart the friendship and used both of them. Yeah. And so in our surrounding ourselves with good counsel, having those people, those concentric circles that are helping, like that inner circle that's helping us point out where there might be toxic relationships, we also need to ask ourselves through prayer and discernment if this needs a confrontation. Yeah. If we need to confront that person to say, hey, this is what I feel like our friendship is hinging on the wrong thing, because I feel like this and you do this or whatever. And can I just say, like, can we just do that with respect?
Yes.
Snaps. Absolutely.
Can we just be decent human beings and not, as much, like, it's okay to point something out that you see wrong in something, and also say, and I know that I'm not perfect. Yeah. And I'm not doing all the things right. Yeah. And so, I think that's a whole nother layer, is like, how do you confront someone? But I think there's also wisdom in not confronting a toxic person.
Yeah. I think you can set boundaries for yourself and not necessarily confront someone about all the ways that they've wronged you. Like, I think in your conversation, when you interact with that person, you can, one piece of advice that I thought was really good was being careful in your language and having boundaries around your words, so that you're not speaking in a way that allows space for them to interject their advice. And so you can still be cordial and have conversation and not open up every aspect of your life for them to speak into.
That's good.
And I think that was so good.
That's called guarding your heart.
Guarding your heart and being like really careful with who you trust.
Yeah. Like, you don't have access to this part of my life.
Yes. And that is like, you can't speak into my parenting. You can't speak into my children. You can't speak into my marriage. I can still be cordial and have a conversation with you without allowing you the space or even the time to do that. And I thought that was so good.
I think it also depends on maybe that particular friendship, the history that you have. Maybe you've actually known this person for a long time. You have a history together, and then something has happened, and the friendship has become toxic. And I think you would probably deal with that a little bit differently than you would someone who maybe, maybe you work with them and you've gotten together outside of work and things like that, and then you find out, oh man, this is not good.
yeah.
That you're going to handle that differently too.
Yeah.
Whereas the person that you have a history with and you really have maybe some investment back and forth, and now you're saying, oh my gosh, this is not good for me. You may have to, that person you may need to sit down with rather than just ghosting them and just,
Yeah, that's not the answer.
that's not the answer. And really, as Christians, we shouldn't be doing that. I mean, we should be at least spending some time to say, this is, why I'm not going to be getting together with you every week or something like that.
Well, in Romans 12:18, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And that peace does not mean I'm your BFF and everything we do together is great and everything's fine. Sometimes it means being respectful, like respectfully setting boundaries.
And as Christians, we have the I guess you could say the tool in our toolbox that we can be praying about these people. We can be praying about our friendships. We can be praying about saying, like you said, discernment. Like, how do I handle this? Yeah. If I'm going to be confronting someone, because really confrontation, you're really doing it for yourself in a way. You're saying this is what's going on. This is how I feel. This is what's happened. I really would like this to change, but you're confronting them may or may not have that result.
Yeah. Thank you for saying
That's
that.
Good.
Because that just is a big oh my gosh, ding 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 light in my head, because I'm like, a lot of times where I've gone into confronting someone, I've expected a response from them. And I just walk away really upset and really mad because I expected them to receive it and be like, you're right. Like, I am a horrible person. And do you forgive me? And let's make everything right. Like, if I'm being honest, that's how when I confront someone, I want to lay out in my head, this is how it goes. Like, I lay out all the things that I have wrong with you and our relationship. And then, and then I just expect everything to be, okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'll fix those for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's great that you said confrontation is really about you.
Yeah.
And also it helps it helps define what's going on. Because if they're really invested and they're healthy, they're going to, at some point, it may not be right that instance, because when you're doing something like that, they may have to go walk away and think about it for a while. Yeah. But if it's really something that there's some health in it, they're going to come back and say, you know what, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe this was good. Going on, or that. And if not, and they just, that's it, then But in the meantime, you've said that because maybe at some time in the future when they run into somebody else that they hear the same stuff, they're going to go, ooh, that's the same stuff that Jessica told me.
Common denominator.
Yeah.
I think that in addition to praying for discernment and praying for the other person, I think one thing I've found myself doing is praying for my own mindset shift of when I approach someone who I've had toxic interactions with and they respond to me negatively, Lord, give me the mindset to know that is not who I am and to not be affected so deeply by those
that I
wounds.
Change something about me.
Yes. Give me the confidence, remind me of who I am, and just let me go in there with a mindset of I'm approaching this in a biblical way, showing the fruits of the Spirit. And if that's not reciprocated, I understand why, because I know that they are not coming from the same place. Because I think you absolutely can confront someone and say, I think really highly of you and I really respect you, and this is why what you've done has made me so upset. That's why this has upset me so much, because I love you, and I think so highly of you that when you did this, it hurt me. And so I think that we can still use words like that, not necessarily that, you don't have to shower them with love, but I think that goes a lot further than, hey, this was really messed up and here's all the things you did wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Explain why
here's all the ways
you're
that
so
you really
taken
tick me
aback.
off.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And and you're right in that I think in our culture, it's get rid of the toxic people in your life. Tell them what you really think and all this
Cancel
kind of thing.
them,
Yeah,
cut
you know,
them out.
right. You just, you know, you're going to walk
Ghost
in, drop
them.
the bomb, walk away,
Right.
you know.
Drop
and
the mic.
Right, and just feel like, I did
I'm
it.
right.
Yep, I'm right,
Yep.
you know, and let them deal with the mess.
Yeah.
And that number one, that doesn't help you, and it
Yeah.
definitely doesn't help them. And if you do that as a Jesus follower, it really damages, you know, your reputation in a way as a follower of
does,
Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, I think, and also too, you know, you're saying that like you're going in and they, for example, they don't receive it, and it just the stuff just
Oh, yeah.
comes at
Oh,
you.
yeah.
At that point, what you have to do is you have to be a duck.
Quack.
I
That's
wasn't
right.
gonna do it.
Quack quack. Anyways, you
Tell
have
me what you mean by this.
you have to be a duck, which means that you need to, whatever they say and whatever, you have to just look at them and say, I'm going to be a duck, and it's just going to go like water on the back of a duck. It's going to roll right off. It's not going to soak into me. It's
Oh
not
my
going
gosh!
to
I was like, where is she going with this? Though that makes so much sense.
good.
Those feathers of a duck, those are so smart.
you know, and it's just going to roll right off of me. I'm,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. That's good.
That I'm not going to, I know where that's coming from, so I'm not going to take that in.
Yeah.
Well, I think the very last step in toxic relationships is also to pray. I mean, like, of course, pray before, pray during, but I think one important thing is pray after, because I think over time, like if we start putting some distance between us and toxic relationships, I think over time it can be our natural tendency to say, well, I was the healthy one and I cut them out and they're still unhealthy and I'm healthier now. And I don't think that's the right mindset, because like if we're all on a journey, if we're all learning, then we don't need to be like gloating over someone else's, you know, lack. And I think it's really important to, and I also, when you cut toxic people out, they don't disappear. They don't just go away. A lot of times it's received lots of backlash.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you are looked at as the bad person, because if
Crazy.
they have a posse around them and if they have a group of friends, then they can say, well, look what she did to me, and she did X, Y, Z and everything. And so the fallout of that is like that you're going to put yourself in a position where you might not be looked at in favor by everybody. And what you can do then is pray for that person, because it's really hard to slander someone when you're also praying for them.
Right.
Out of the
That's
same
good.
mouth is hard to slander and to encourage. And so in Matthew 5:43 through 44, Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you."
Right.
And I think that's our duty as Christ followers is, okay, so we might have set up some, that's another thing, is pride that comes from like setting up some boundaries, like can make you feel really good about like, okay, awesome, go me. I just got out of this toxic relationship. But be careful that pride sneaks up, because that pride is going to keep you from praying for those who persecute you. And so I think that it's just important. And another, like one last thing is respect. And like we threw this around earlier, but be a respectful human. I mean, and like what comes to mind, like don't go around airing other people's dirty laundry. It's not your place. Like sure, if you need to tell like your close counsel, like, okay, this is what happened, and
Right.
then that's fine, but don't go around making them look any less than, because they were created in the image of God as well. And so when you're bashing them and dragging their name through the mud, you're not doing yourself any good, and you're not doing them any good.
Yeah.
And it also does not exude the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
Boom. I think that is something that I've been like over and over again convicted on, because I'll find myself like in the heat of the moment, like leaving a confrontation and being like, you will never guess how that went. And then just like, blah, 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 like it's all like, and like, that's not my business. That's not my business to tell, you know? And I think that part of it is we have this notion in our head that everyone is eventually going to hear the story. So you want to like prep them.
You want to be ahead of it.
Yeah.
Right. And that is just not the case.
No.
Like 3 people over from you, I guarantee they have never heard of anything you're talking about with the person next to you. So that is just like a false reality. And so for me, like guarding my tongue after situations like that has been really difficult and something that it's like constant. And it's at the point now where I'm like immediately convicted after, and I'm like, I shouldn't have said that, was not my business to say. And I think that that's important is when we realize like that's something that I need to guard better.
That's a good
I
advice.
think it's a natural desire, at least I know for myself, is I hate being misunderstood. And so the tendency is going to say, I'm going to explain my side of it.
Straight.
Yeah, I'm going to set the
Just so
record
you know.
straight. But I think we can rest and trust in the fact that the truth always comes out at some point.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just by us living and being consistent in who we are.
Yeah.
That eventually all the people who may, like you said, with the posse and saying, oh my gosh, I cannot believe she did this or did that.
Yeah,
and
that's
said
good.
this. And, that the truth will come out and they're going to say, oh, maybe now I see it. But I think the idea of just not getting into gossip and not getting into, I want to get somebody on my side.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah. Because gossip can be true. Like, it's not like it's not a rumor. It can be true, and you might be speaking truth, but is it your truth to speak? Like, is it your business to speak? And that's what I ask
that's a very
myself.
good point.
Even if I'm telling it, like, historically,
Here are some facts.
this is exactly what happened. Is it that person's business to know?
That's right.
Yeah. That was good. So, kind of just summing up, did you have any more thoughts?
No, go ahead.
Did you?
That was
Did we
good.
just lay it out there?
I kind of wish there was a Play-Doh form now, though. Like, after hearing all that, I'm like, can we just skip all these steps and put them into a Play-Doh that
Giant
we just,
ball of dough.
that'll just collect all of our toxic dust
I think
Yeah,
from our
just
lives?
roll it on there.
Okay, so we identified where okay, so we talked about you could be in 3 camps. You could be in a toxic relationship and not know how to get out of it. You can be in a toxic relationship and have no clue that you're living in a toxic relationship, or you could not be in one, but it would be wise to know what one is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from those, we can identify what toxicity is. We can surround ourselves with wise counsel, and then we can pray about confront or not confront, because sometimes not confronting is better because it can just be a big yarn ball that's all messed up. And then establishing some healthy boundaries, and then praying for that person and showing them respect.
Yeah.
The fruits of the Spirit.
Yeah, that's good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
So if you have any thoughts that kind of tack onto this, feel free to email inspired@thex.church, because we'd love to hear, feedback and hear your thoughts on this. And, it's, we have 3 people at this table, but you're always welcome, and your insight is also appreciated. And so just email in.
Yeah, if there's something you would like us to talk about, let us know.
Yeah. All right.
That's good.
Thanks for joining us today, and we will see you for another exciting episode next week.
Okay, bye.
See you then.
Thanks so much for listening. Our hope is that everyone who hears these episodes, near or far, would know that the invitation at our table is always open. You might not be sitting at this table, but our desire is that you would join in on these conversations. So if you were inspired by today's talks, send us an email at inspired@thex.church. We'd love to hear your thoughts, stories, and questions. And as always, don't forget to rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts.